Hello, everybody. It's your favorite English teacher here, Amy Joy, and today we are going to talk about something that I've been noticing with my students, some difficulties using certain vocabulary words. So today's lesson is going to focus on how to use words like prevent, restrict, prohibit, etc. So I want you to look at these sentences and think about what might be wrong with them. Mohammed says, new pandemic laws prevent you to gather with large groups. Anna says, wearing a mask impedes the virus to spread. And Priscilla says, some grocery stores limit you to buy 6 rolls of toilet paper. So what do you think is wrong here? Well, let's take a look first at Mohammed. Mohammed said again, new pandemic laws prevent you to gather. We can't really say prevent you to gather. We might say new pandemic laws prevent you from gathering with large groups, and that would be correct. Now, Anna, she said, wearing a mask impedes the virus to spread, when instead we should say, wearing a mask impedes the virus from spreading. So you might think, okay, we're always going to say this verb and then from spreading or from gathering, from plus ing, and I'm good to go. Well, let's look at what Priscilla says. Priscilla says, some grocery stores limit you to buy 6 rolls of toilet paper. And here we say, some grocery stores limit you to 6 rolls of toilet paper. Well, here there's not a from and an ing, so there's some confusion here about how to use these different words of restriction and what comes after them. So I'm hoping to help you today figure out how to use all of these words correctly. So in fact, there are 10 different ways to say keep someone from doing something. So there's a lot of vocabulary here, and I've grouped them into groups 1, 2, and 3. Group 1, we have to impede, to prohibit, to prevent, to inhibit, to stop, to hinder, and to hamper. To hinder and to hamper are very elevated and quite academic, and they're kind of fun if you don't know those vocab words already. They all mean to keep someone from doing something. In group number 2, we have to restrict and to limit, and those kind of are similar and work in the same way. And 3, we have to keep. So to keep someone from doing something, right? So I've grouped all of these words according to the grammar that they use. So all of these words have the same or very similar meaning to keep you from doing something, but they use different grammar. Like what comes after them? Is it from? Is it a noun? Is it a verb? And I'm going to clarify that for you today. So these words have 3 different grammatical options. So these types of words have 3 different grammatical options. And so your first grammatical option is to use the verb and a noun after it, so a direct object. So these verbs can be transitive if you're a grammar nerd like I am. Groups 1 and 2 can be transitive. So what I mean by that is that we can say things like new pandemic laws impede what? Large gatherings. So you have the verb and you have the noun right after it. What is being prevented? So new pandemic laws prohibit large gatherings, prevent large gatherings, inhibit large gatherings, stop large gatherings, hinder, hamper, restrict, and limit large gatherings. So groups 1 and 2, all of the verbs can act in a similar way when you're using the verb plus a noun. Number 10, which was keep, you cannot say new pandemic laws keep large gatherings. I think you have the knowledge to maybe know that this would mean like continue them, and that wouldn't make any sense. So for your first grammatical option, groups 1 and 2, they can both use this grammatical construction, the verb plus a noun, or they can all be used as transitive verbs. Now your second grammatical option will be used with groups 1 and 3. So you might use this, and you're probably very familiar with it, to keep someone from doing something. So verb someone from doing something. So let's take a look at some examples. Wearing a mask impedes the virus from spreading, or wearing a mask prohibits the virus from spreading. The wearing a mask prevents the virus from spreading. Inhibits, stops, hinders, hampers, and then we get to restricts, and I'll talk about that in a second. So numbers 1 through 7, you can say verb someone from doing something or something from doing something. So impedes the virus from spreading. You can also use it with group 3, which is just to keep. So wearing a mask keeps the virus from spreading. And we have group 2, which is number 8 and 9. Number 8 says wearing a mask restricts the virus from spreading. I put question marks there because this is a questionable usage, and I'll talk and speak to that in just a second. But for number 9, it's definitely incorrect. You would not be able to say wearing a mask limits the virus from spreading. For whatever reason, in English, the English gods decided that we cannot use limit the virus and then from doing something, or limit someone from doing something. So it just sounds unnatural, does not use the same grammar as groups 1 and 3. But thinking about the verb restrict. Now this one was actually kind of tricky for me. One of my students said wearing a mask restricts the virus from spreading. And I thought, that doesn't sound too bad, but I also wouldn't say that instead of the other options that I have. So I went ahead and I went into Rightful, my favorite corpus tool, and I typed in restricted from versus restricted to. And if you notice, we use restricted from only 1.6% of the time, whereas we use restricted to 98.4% of the time. We haven't talked about restricted to quite yet, but as you can see, it is much more common to say restricted to versus restricted from. So although we might be able to say wearing a mask restricts the virus from spreading, I would say that it's not as common. And those other groups like numbers 1 through 7 would be much more frequently said. So although this might not be wrong, it might not be the best choice either. So speaking about restricting, we have grammatical option number 3. And this only works for group number 2. So you might restrict or limit someone to, and then a noun. So let me give you some examples with restrict. The bar restricts customers to 6 drinks. Now I've put purchasing in here because when you use a verb as a noun, we use the gerund form, the ing form. So you technically could say the bar restricts customers to purchasing 6 drinks, but typically I think in order to be less wordy, we would just use the noun. So let's take a look at number 2. If you are on a diet, you might restrict yourself to 1,500 calories a day. To me, that sounds better than to eating 1,500 calories a day, but I do believe that both are grammatically correct. Number 3, the instructor restricted the assignment to 2,000 words. So restrict someone to, and then a noun, not a verb. 4, you should restrict yourself to 3 hours of screen time a day. And this can actually also be used in the passive voice, but the someone will move to the front because it's passive and you're using the object as the subject and it gets all messy. I won't go into that, but you can see an example here. The assignment was restricted to 2,000 words. And another passive example, access to the COVID vaccine is restricted to healthcare workers right now. Now we're going to look at the same examples, but with limit, just so you can get a little bit more comfortable and see how restrict and limit, group number 2, work similarly in terms of their grammatical constructions. So number 1, the bar limits customers to 6 drinks. If you are on a diet, you might limit yourself to 1,500 calories a day. The instructor limited the assignment to 2,000 words. You should limit yourself to 3 hours of screen time a day. The assignment was limited to 2,000 words, and access to the COVID vaccine is limited to healthcare workers right now. So one little note, just notice that restrict or limit someone to something is different from restricting or limiting something. So I'm going to contrast these two right here again with our examples with restrict. Number 1, the bar restricts customers to 6 drinks. So you can restrict customers to, and then another noun. In number 2, you have the bar restricts the amount of drinks you can buy. So this one, you're not restricting anyone, you're just restricting something. The bar restricts the amount of drinks you can buy. Number 3, If you are on a diet, you might restrict yourself to 1,500 calories a day. But in number 4, certain diets restrict the types of foods you can eat. So the blue ones are using the verb plus a direct object, just whatever is being restricted right after it. Whereas the pink one, you're restricting someone to something. Same goes with limit. The instructor limited the assignment to 2,000 words, whereas the instructor limited the word count. Number 3, you should limit yourself to 3 hours of screen time a day. And number 4, you should limit your screen time. So they have similar meanings, but the pink one just includes who is being limited and what they're being limited to. Whereas the blue one, it just uses it transitively with a direct object, and it only focuses on what is being restricted or limited. So what I want you to do now, I have 7 sentences that contain some errors from some of my students recently. So I would like you to pause this video, take a second, write your answers down, and then once you unpause it, I will go ahead and answer them with some commentary to help you understand the answers better. So pause. All right, so hopefully you have gone ahead and written down your answers, and let's go through these one by one. So the first one, some students think that online instruction impedes students to work together. Can we say impede someone to do something? No, we will have to say some students think that online instruction impedes students from working together. Number 2, the basic Netflix plan restricts customers to use 3 devices. Can we restrict someone to do something? No. There's a couple options here. The basic Netflix plan restricts customers to 3 devices. This, again, you could include the verb if you really wanted to, but if you include the verb use, then you have to make it a gerund form to maintain its noun property. So restricts customers to 3 devices or restricts customers to using 3 devices. And number 3, restaurants limit to the amount of people inside due to the pandemic. Limit to the amount of? Sounds kind of strange. Instead, we would just take out to, restaurants limit the amount of people inside due to the pandemic. You can also say restaurants limit how many people can go inside due to the pandemic. I'm sure you did not write that down because it doesn't seem like an option and doesn't use the same language. However, this is a natural way to express this, so I wanted to include it. And just note that how many people can go is actually a noun clause and can act as a single noun. So this would be the direct object of limit. So I wanted to include it for you, some extra bonus content. Number 4, not writing down your goals can hinder you to achieve them. Can you hinder someone to do something? No. Hinder you from achieving them. So again, that kind of keeps someone from doing something, construction. Number 5, graphic images on cigarette boxes limit many people from buying them. Not quite. In this case, limit would not work because we don't use limit and the from doing something construction as we talked about. So instead of using limit, you would have to choose a different verb. I think some of the ones that make the most sense here include prevent, hamper, stop, or keep. So graphic images on cigarette boxes prevent many people, hamper many people, stop many people, or keep many people from buying them. Number 6, the possibility of getting a ticket prevents people to speed. Can you prevent someone to do something? No, you have to prevent someone from doing something. So the possibility of getting a ticket prevents people from speeding. And number 7, Twitter and Facebook restricted Donald Trump to access his accounts toward the end of his presidency. So restrict someone to do something? We definitely can't say that. You might say Twitter and Facebook restricted Donald Trump's access to his accounts. Notice here we have restrict plus a direct object, restrict access, and Donald Trump's is part of the noun phrase acting as an adjective, but we won't go into that. Restrict Donald Trump's access to his accounts. So just a quick recap. Remember, we've got 3 groups of words and 3 grammatical options, but there is a little bit of overlap between the groups. So the first one is using these verbs plus a direct object or using them transitively. For example, new pandemic laws impede. Impede what? Large gatherings. And again, groups 1 and 2, so numbers 1 through 9, they can all be used in that way. Number 2, so verb someone from doing something, so keep someone from doing something. These are groups 1 and 3. So for example, wearing a mask impedes the virus from spreading or keeps the virus from spreading. And then our third grammatical option would just be with group 3, to restrict or limit someone to something. So the bar restricts customers to 6 drinks. So let's talk. Tell me in the comments, what has the pandemic prevented you from doing? Do you restrict anything in your life? Social media, desserts? Let me know if you restrict anything in your life. And number 3, what stops you from achieving goals you have? Let me know. Try to use some of these vocabulary words as you answer. And also let me know if you have any questions or comments in the comments below. And I hope this was helpful. This presentation was made with Slides Go, a template from them. I love using them for my presentations and I recommend them. So yeah, I hope this was helpful and I look forward to hearing from you in the comments. I'll see you next time. Bye.